Hello and welcome to another session in the Sqoop series. So in this session we will see how we can work with null data. So how do you handle such null data, right? So what I am doing here is I'm creating a simple table called test. It has three columns: ID, name and city, and then I'm inserting two records here. One record is basically has null at city, the other record has null at the ID column. So these are the two records. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to do a simple Sqoop import. This is a simple Sqoop import that we have been doing. So we have the connect drivers. This is under retail underscore db. We have username, password. We are using just one mapper. This is a table name, and this is where we wanted to import this data. So I will go ahead and execute this data, execute this query. So it has retrieved the two records that are available. So let me go ahead and list this directory. It should only have one file. So I am going to go ahead and cat this. So if you can see here, right, we have this data, we have null here, we have null here. Now the problem here is, if this is basically treated as a text, this is not treated as a null as we know in the relational database. So if you read this data, this particular record will be treated as a string. It's not a null record, it's a string, it's a string value. So when you want to query using hive or any other thing, then you will have a little bit difficulty, because those programs will treat this as a string. Now what we can do is, when we do an import, we can basically convert this. So if it is a null, we can replace it with some value. So here if you see this particular column, which has city column, this is string, and this is basically non-string. So what we can do is, we can say, hey, you know what, all columns, all in the table, all the columns which are string, if it has a null value, we replace it with something. If it is a non-string and it has null in it, we replace it with something else. So with this sqoop command, what we have to do is, we have to add one simple option here. So I'll change the directory here. Now here what we have to say is, we say hyphen hyphen null string. So if it is a string column and if you are seeing null, replace it as null data. You can do anything, you can put anything. I'm just putting it as null data. However, if it is a null in a non-string columns, then what is the value that you want it to be replaced? I want to replace it with 0. So my ID column, if it is a null, it will be 0 in the final output. My city, if it has null, it will simply say null data. So this way we are basically replacing this data, right? So let me go ahead and execute. All right, so it retrieved root records, and we have this data here in this. So let me go ahead and list this. So while we were learning Sqoop, we are also using the HDFS command, common HDFS command, where we are listing the files, we are catting this file. This way you will also be learning or also be practicing the HDFS commands. Not much, but still these are the common HDFS commands we keep on using. So as you can see here, right, here this was null, but we replace it with null data, and this was a null record, and here it was null in the ID column, where, and we have replaced that with 0. So this way, while you import the data, if you want a particular null values to be replaced with some other value, then you can use this option. This is quite an important feature, and especially when you are trying to import this data into an HDFS text file or something, because there everything is treated as string, right? So when you want to read that particular file that you have imported, if you have null in it, null will be treated as a string, which is not the case, right? So that's why it is good you do a cleaning, some kind of, this is kind of a cleaning process where you kind of identify the null records and replace with something else, where when you query this data, you can kind of, hey, if you find 0, which basically means that was a null record, that's why we have 0 there, right? So this is something that we can do. All right, so this is what I wanted to cover. It's a short video and I hope that you have liked it, and I'll see you guys in my next class.